Hello and welcome to the third in a short series talking about the different systems that you'll find on a modern multi-rotor like this model from Armatan. Now, in the very first video I talked about control. In the second video I talked about power systems. This time I'm talking about FPV. Specifically analog FPV. If you want to know about digital FPV, things like the DJI system, I have a complete series on that. One video in particular goes through all the different things, and I've also put it inside a number of models. I'll put links below to all those videos if you want to find out more. But in this video I'm going to go through the analog FPV bits and pieces, right the way from the camera at the front of the model through the flight controller, video transmitter, out through the antenna, and then into the antenna of whatever it is that you're watching on. It can be goggles like these Fat Sharks, or it could be a screen, it could be anything, and how all of that stuff works. Again, this is aimed at those of you that are relatively new to tinkering with this stuff. If you've got a bind and fly model, or you're quite experienced with this, then this is probably not going to be news to you. But if you maybe have just had one bind and fly model and this is your first adventure into modifying, building, changing, tweaking, upgrading what you've already got, then this will cover the basics and give you the context to give you the best possible outcome. So let's jump on the computer and we'll go through some slides. And let me first of all talk about what FPV can be, because you know what? You don't need a flight controller to have FPV on your vehicle. So let's start from that most basic of setups and cover some FPV basics before we start adding in things like flight controllers and on-screen displays. Now, what you can do is just have a setup like this on the screen. You can have an FPV camera on the left-hand side, and then that can be plugged into a video transmitter, and that video transmitter will broadcast the video signal over the air, typically on 5.8 gigahertz. And then it'll be received by some antenna, either on a goggles or a screen, and then that will be displayed as an image in front of your eyes. Now, a couple of points to note on this particular setup. First of all is that the video transmitter is also going to be plugged into typically the flight battery. So that's going to be powered separately. And of those three wires that connect from the video transmitter to the camera, there's going to be a ground wire, a voltage wire, and the video signal is going to come from the camera. That's typically going to be a yellow or white cable. Now, the voltage that the cameras run on these days, modern cameras will run on typically anything from 5 to 36 volts. Back in the day, there used to be two standards. It was either 5 volts or 12 volts, depending on the technology inside the camera. These days, there is a much wider voltage range, and that means you can use almost any voltage to power the camera. But check with the one that you have, because occasionally you do get some of the smaller, more compact, cheaper cameras that will only run at the lower voltages. I tend to run all my cameras here at either 5 or 8 volts. The video transmitter then receives that video signal and encodes it and broadcasts it on 5.8 gigahertz on one of the specific channels that's available to us on FPV. Now, there's several different bands, and each of those bands have up to 8 individual channels on them. And by making sure that the receiver in your goggles or screen is set to the same one, then you'll see the image. You don't have to bind. In fact, if you're at a race or somewhere where somebody's flying analog FPV, you'll be able to just scroll through and find the channel that they're on and watch their FPV feed too. There's no encryption in analog FPV. If you're within range and your goggles are sensitive enough, you'll be able to pick up their broadcast and watch it if you're tuned to the right channel. A couple of other tips to talk about while we're on this slide. I'd always recommend having the same antenna on your goggles as on your video transmitter. Now, there are things like this, which is a linear antenna. This is what you'll tend to find on the very smallest models. I would also recommend having a similar whip or rubber ducky style antenna on your goggles if you're going to be flying with that, but most pilots fly with some kind of circular polarized antenna that either look like this or something like this, or maybe even like this, which is a pagoda style antenna, which is what I pretty much exclusively use on my models now. It can be very confusing around antennas. I have a whole series, the FPV Antenna Lab. The trick I will give you is just make sure that whatever antenna you're using on the model, you have exactly the same type on your goggles and you should be good. Occasionally you'll see goggles with more than one antenna, and that's called diversity. And typically what you'll have is you'll have that same antenna that I've just talked about, and underneath you'll have a patch or a directional antenna that's more sensitive in one particular direction, and that means that the goggles have two chances of getting a nice clear signal from your model. Now, in modern FPV cameras, they also provide the ability to show you some basic information. So things like timers are very often included in them, and it will show the amount of time the camera's been powered up, which is kind of handy for tracking how long you've been flying. And a lot of them have things like a pin that you can connect to the positive voltage wire on your battery, and it will show your flight battery status as well. So you don't need a flight controller to have very basic flight information over the image when you are flying. Lots of the high-end cameras from people like Foxeer and Runcam, you can set it up without the need for a flight controller to give you that timer and the flight battery voltage. However, what is very common is for a flight controller to be involved, especially when we're talking about a quadcopter. And in the old days, you had to have a separate little board, something called a minim OSD. You may hear of those if you're looking in the old forums, and that was a separate board that you plugged your camera into and your video transmitter and did the on-screen display stuff. Luckily, we don't have to mess about with any of that now, because that technology to create an on-screen display and overlay key flight information is actually inside the flight controller. However, you will still need something like a minim OSD style board if you're using a flight controller that doesn't have the on-screen display electronics on board. Things like the Pixhawk, the Durandal, those kind of flight controllers aren't really designed with FPV in mind, so if you do want to add FPV, you'll have to add an extra little bit of technology. But I'm not going to get too much into that. We're going to focus on these kind of modern flight controllers that have that technology on board that you can use very easily. And what you do is you plug the cables from the camera onto the flight controller, and similarly you plug the cables from the flight controller into your video transmitter. And what the flight controller is actually doing is two or three things here. First of all, it is providing power for the camera. Now, as I said before, the camera is usually going to be powered between anything from 5 to 36 volts. I tend to power my cameras at the lower end of that, usually 5 or 8 volts if there's an option to set that on the flight controller. And many flight controllers do allow you, via typically the soldering of a couple of pads together, to pick what the camera voltage should be. But if it's something like 5 volts, I'm very happy with that. The flight controller's also providing a very clean, clear voltage to the camera. Having lots of high currents and voltages flying around inside the model can occasionally cause interference with your FPV. So having the flight controller also condition the power, the voltages and currents going to the camera mean that that isn't going to happen. As well as providing the power for the camera, it takes the video signal from the camera into the flight controller. And then inside the flight controller, it actually adds the on-screen display information. That on-screen display information is using a very specific chip and can be configured in the Betaflight tab. Once that is all done, then it outputs that new video signal, which includes the original image from the camera plus the on-screen display that it's just created with all the information that you want about speed, height, distance, battery, current, whatever. It outputs that on another pin, and that's the video signal pin that goes into the video transmitter. And the video transmitter then just acts exactly as it did before. It outputs that image, broadcasts it, and you can pick that up with your goggles or screen. And the last thing the flight controller is doing is it's also providing a nice clean voltage supply to the video transmitter. Now, the video transmitters typically run at higher voltages because historically they will be plugged directly into the flight battery. So they'll work up to some really high voltages. The tip is, when you're plugging all this together, is to always make sure that the voltage that's been output by the flight controller for both the camera and the video transmitter are within ranges that those systems will be very happy with. Personally, I like to go somewhere in the middle, towards the lower end ideally, because all that happens is that extra voltage that you supply to something like the video transmitter is just dissipated as heat anyway. So in an effort to try and make sure that that additional heat isn't generated in a video transmitter, because they do get a little bit hot in operation, I'll tend to, if my video transmitter is going to run from, I don't know, maybe 8 to 36 volts, I'll try and run it at 12 volts, and that will work great. So that's how an on-screen display is done, and that's how the wiring's done. And here in this image, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This is the flight controller inside the Armatan model that we looked at the beginning. And here you can see that the camera is plugging onto one side of the flight controller, and we have the 3 wires for the video signal. And those 3 wires are black for ground, red for the camera voltage, and yellow for the video signal. And there's another cable, but we'll come on to that in a minute. And on the other side of the flight controller, you can see the outputs going in to the video transmitter at the back of the model. And that is, again, a black and red for ground and voltage, and another yellow cable for the video signal. But you can see there's also another cable there, and that's a white one. So let's talk a little bit about what these extra cables are. And those are to allow you to control things like the video transmitter and even the camera directly from the flight control software. You can use the on-screen display that's created via the flight controller to access a menu and set things up. Now, that additional wire that's going into the video transmitter will go onto one of the pins on the flight controller, typically a UART. It'll be configured in the Betaflight or iNav setup for either TBS Smart Audio or TRAMP. And those are 2 protocols that allow you to tell the video transmitter what channel and what band you want to be set on. It also allows you to do things like operate pit mode, where the video transmitter starts in a very low setting, and that can stop the video transmitter coming on, and maybe someone else is already flying and they've already chosen to fly on the same band and channel that you normally fly on. You don't want to plug your quadcopter in and then suddenly step all over their image so they can't see where they're going and they crash. Also, you can set things like the power level. Different power levels are available in different parts of the world legally. 25 milliwatts is usually legal in most places, but check with your local laws about what the power levels available to you are. And that leaves just one cable that we need to talk about, and that's the other cable, which is the camera control cable. Lots of FPV cameras these days and lots of flight controllers have the ability to plug in that last cable and allow you to access the settings on the FPV camera. And why would you want to do that? Well, you might want to access whether or not it's set for PAL or NTSC. Setting up for PAL will give you a slightly taller image, which will allow you to fit more on your on-screen display. PAL is the video system used in Europe, and NTSC, the other option, is the video system that's used in North America. You can also do things like change the brightness, contrast, white balance, all that kind of goodness, without having to use a little joystick and plug it into the back of the camera and access everything separately. So that's what a modern FPV system looks like, and that's the basics of how it works. Hopefully, along with the other 2 videos, the one with control, one on power, and this one on FPV, you now know enough to have a look at a quadcopter and have a rough idea what's going on. It can be very confusing when you're looking at especially something like an all-in-one flight controller or a flight controller stack that might have a power distribution board on there. It might have a 4-in-1 ESC setup. It might have the flight controller, and on the top it might have the video transmitter with cables going everywhere. But now you know what they all do and how they all interconnect. Thank you for watching my video and watching right to the very end. If you want to find out what I'm currently working on, you can follow me on social media by searching for Painless360 in the usual places. If you'd like to become part of the inner circle, then you can become a Patreon. Details are in the description and you get lots of additional benefits. Check out the playlist section on the channel too. I organise all of my videos into playlists, and it's called something like Introduction to or for Beginners. All of the content is aimed so that you can start at the very beginning, and it teaches you that subject, starting with simple principles and moving up to teach you everything you need to know.